What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Speak Out Loud, the story behind the brand. I am so excited to be with you every Tuesday. And, I mentioned to you guys earlier part of this year and even last year that we were just going to have some incredible guests on our podcast this year. And I'm telling you, the lineup is just getting greater and greater. And my guest today is super awesome and so special to me, to my family, as well as my children. And so I am just honored to have Miss Paula Armstrong with me today. And as she helps us speak out loud today, she's going to tell us her very unique story behind the brand. And so if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get ready to speak out loud. Let's go.
You're watching Speak Out Loud, the story behind the brand.
About that. See how modest she is, y'all? But let's go. So roasted crickets, I'm like, not eating that.
Yeah.
Consistency.
Every day showing up, even when you don't feel like it.
And now your host, Lynette Jackson.
That's right. I am your host, Lynette Jackson, and I am excited to be here with you one more time. I'm going to ask you to like and share this podcast out with all of your friends and family. Why? Because sharing is caring, right? So this podcast is powered by and sponsored by Roar Media Group. So let's just hear a little quick message from Roar.
Roar Media Group is a full-service digital marketing, branding, and web development agency. Our mission is to help our clients speak out loud in the marketplace and grow their businesses by leveraging the power of digital media. We specialize in creating customized strategies that are tailored to meet each customer's unique needs and objectives. At Roar Media Group, we utilize cutting-edge technologies and proven strategies to create innovative digital marketing, branding, and web development solutions. Our team of experts is dedicated to helping our customers reach their goals by providing strategic advice and support. Contact us today at roarmediagroup.com and schedule your free consultation.
That's right. Schedule your free consultation. Just go out to roarmediagroup.com and we talk to you. We want to help you speak out loud in the marketplace with your projects and your processes and all of the good things that we do for you. I started Roar Media Group because there was a need to provide quality graphics at affordable prices. And I do this for churches, small businesses, and nonprofits. And I would love to do it for you. So make sure you hit us up on our website and let us know. Before we get started, I just want to say, if you are making a comment out there today, please put your name in that comment. Because sometimes the software tells me who it is and it shows your picture, and sometimes it doesn't. So put your name in the comment, because someone just put a comment out there and they didn't put their name. And so I want you to put your name out there and let us know who we're talking to, because we're going to bring you in to the conversation so that you can talk with my guests. So whoever said, "Hi, Miss Beautiful Lynette," I want to say hi back to you, but I don't know who it is. So please tell me who you are. Just put a comment back there. All right, you guys ready to get started? I am super ready to get started. So listen, my guest, I've known her, gosh, she even said today, it's probably close to 30 years, but it's probably close to 30 years. And we're going to be talking today about stepping out of your comfort zone. Now, why is that super important? Simply because it takes courage to go against the grain, to try something new, right? And it's not comfortable stepping out of your comfort zone. A lot of times we put ourselves in a position where it's like, okay, I want to do something, but then I don't have the nerve to do it. And my guest today, she stepped out of her comfort zone. And I think she really went out from her comfort zone. And you're going to find out why in just a few seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce to some and present to others my friend, Miss Paula Armstrong. Hey, Paula, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am great. I am great. It is so good to see you and talk to you about the story behind your amazing brand. So how you feeling today?
Honestly, I'm feeling nervous because I'm usually on my podcast. I don't have the visual. I just have the audio, so I'm able to kind of hide behind that. But again, like God, He always pushes us out of our comfort zone.
Absolutely. So this coming out on this podcast is even out of your comfort zone.
Yes, it is, most definitely.
So sometimes we have to, but that's okay. You're with me, and
That's
you've
right.
known me for so long,
So long.
and you've known my children, and even taught my son.
Right.
And so, yeah, so it's just me. It's just Lynette.
Yeah,
You
just
know,
that and
it's
like 5,000, 100,000 other people. Let's not forget about those people, right?
We can't forget about them, but they also love you too. Trust me, they love you too. Well, listen, I always start off asking my guests what I call the 4 clarity questions. And that is, who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it? And Paula, who do you have the pleasure to do it for?
Well, the first question is who I am. I am a woman that was an immigrant. I don't think a lot of the listeners know that I'm from Ireland. I was born and bred, as we call it, in Ireland in a war zone till I graduated college and I came out here to live in Atlanta.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
was 21. I had a big bag and my purse, and that was it. I literally
Wow.
delved into the American culture. I lived in Sandy Springs, so I was also in a it was good. It was good, conducive because America go by color zone. Ireland goes by religious zone. So I
Mm.
never knew I was white until I came to America. And
Oh, okay.
like, it's like you're
That's
Irish, you're
interesting.
Catholic or Protestant, and here it was like, oh, you're white, you know. And
Okay.
it was challenging at first because when you don't live in a color zone, you're thrown into it and you don't really you're like, I wouldn't judge you because of your color, so but I was in a Catholic church. I played soccer. But one thing I loved with this particular church, we used to feed the homeless every Saturday downtown.
Mhm,
And it just really got me to like I've grown up in being a community-based family. We were always outreach, we were always giving back to the community. And so that was a part of me with the Catholic Church. Every Saturday I got to love on people and give back to them. Even when they're at their lowest part of their lives and felt like they weren't anybody in society. We were able to kind of feed them soup, give them sandwiches. I was cutting hair too. I was good with the clippers. So, but that went on to dogs further down the line in careers. But I really enjoyed it. I really loved loving on people, and I'm still like that to today.
mhm,
Love
mhm.
to I love cultures. I love loving on people. I'm one of those people in the grocery store talk to strangers. Out like, do you know how the avocado, when it's softer, it's better? No, I'm one of those.
So tell us what you do.
I do many things.
Okay.
My major thing was veterinary medicine and dog training and dog
Mhm.
pet sitting and grooming. That whole genre of dog sitting was basically my career for 20 years. And
Wow.
I'm still in it. I still get phone calls from people. My dog has the runs. What do I do? And then I go into the vet tech hat and
Mhm,
start telling them stuff for behavioral or puppy training and all that good stuff. But I do a genre of things. I
mhm,
I graduated college with an art degree, and I started going back into my creative juices as what, and I started creating documentaries,
mhm.
and I've got 3 of those up in the development stages, and then 2 years ago, God gave me that idea, but the podcast was kinda like an after effect. It was more like, "Oh, that'd be good if I'll be able to see people," like, I was the third, like, I'm looking into someone doing it, but not
Mhm,
me doing it,
mhm.
and God was like, "No." I want you to do it. And I'm like, "Babe,
Wow.
you know how I am. I'm not, I love one-on-one, but to get up in front of an audience and speak, it was very nerve-wracking for me. It was like, no, get someone else to do it. And so
Mhm.
I had a mentor, and she's still my mentor. And she said, okay, in November, she said, hey, what are we going to do here? You know, like,
Mhm.
I need a date for the podcast launch. And I was like, what? It's good to have it on the back, but when you're not confident in who you are, what you do is you'll keep putting it as a dream or on the
Mhm.
shelf, and we all do that. You know, things God gave us, visions, dreams. We're like, "Oh, we'll do that when I get
Mhm.
enough money," or "We'll get that when I've lost 20 pounds," or,
Yeah.
you know how that goes, and so for me, I really put a deadline on it, which was January 7th,
Mhm.
and literally, it's been God. I have not, like, I'm going on to YouTube videos trying to figure out how to do the technical part of it. And I'm not an audio person. I'm more of a, like pictures. I always tell people this scenario. If you had a box from IKEA with a shelving unit and it has,
Mhm.
the instructions, right?
Mhm.
If it has words in it, it's going to stay in the box. I
Yeah.
have to have pictures because I'm an art
Yes.
teacher. Like I'm an
Yes.
artist. So I was
A
like, I
visual
need
learner.
pictures. Right.
Right, a
And
visual learner.
so it ended up, I literally was getting thrown into different avenues that I was not
Mhm.
used to, but I think that comes away from you going out of your comfort zone, like you were
Yes,
speaking on.
absolutely.
You cannot,
Stepping out of your
um,
comfort zone.
yeah, you cannot. And something about my mentor, she was saying, you've got all these productions and documentaries on the table. And it was so overwhelming. She could see
Mhm.
where I was hyperventilating. I was getting
Oh, wow.
scared. And she said, Paul, you got this. Just do small. And it
Yes.
started with my gray hair.
Mhm.
Embrace Your Gray is a project I'm working on. And it's to embrace the gray hair that some of us ladies or men get,
Yeah.
but we don't embrace the part of where the gray areas of our life. You know, our
Okay, come
lives are
on,
not black
girl.
and white. It's gray,
Mhm.
and we're having to
Mhm.
rely on God more in order to get through that journey. And so the journey and
Okay.
the Embrace Your Gray is all intertwining.
It's all intertwined.
And so that was
So that's
basically.
good. You unpack you said a whole bunch, and I'm just here writing notes. And this is Black History Month, and excuse me because I certainly failed to mention that in the beginning of the podcast. It's the first Tuesday of the month, and it's Black History Month, and so it's really interesting that you and I are talking on the first Tuesday. You said something super powerful. You said in Ireland you are categorized by religious zones.
Mhm.
So Catholic and Protestant, and I've watched a lot of Henry VIII, and I watched a lot of those movies where they're
Yeah,
just
the
the
medieval and all that stuff, yeah.
medieval. I love those things,
Right.
but I've watched a lot of them, and they were fighting for the church. Majority of Ireland and England was Catholic, and they were just fighting for those positions. But when you said you got to America, it was black or white.
Yep, it
So how
was.
was that how was that for you when
I
you
well, the
when
the
you got
Catholic
here?
church, yeah, the Catholic church I was at originally, the first year, which was '88, it was a white church in Sandy Springs.
Okay, so when you came to America,
Uh-huh.
you started going to a Catholic church. So
Yeah,
you went right to what normally is a
normally,
Catholic church.
right.
Okay.
And then I picked up volleyball and I became in a league, and then I played soccer in the league. So predominantly when you're in a district, you're kind of put in with all the white players, you know. But to me, it was still very shocking that I kept saying the white person. Like it was foreign to me. It's like you calling me a boy when I've been a girl all my life, you know. And I was
Right.
like, "But I'm a girl." And they were like, "But you're a boy." But, and I think, culturally wise, I needed more.
Mhm.
And what I did was I went to a Catholic church in the West End because it was a all black
Okay.
church. And it was
Wow,
led by a black
that was out
missionary.
of your comfort zone. I mean, you
Yeah,
went to the West End, which we call SWATs here in Atlanta.
right.
You went to the West End to go to a Catholic church in the West End. Now, that's very curious. Why did you do that?
And this is something that a lot of times black people and white people don't understand. We were working class, but my aunt was middle class,
Mhm.
but we were still in the environment of working class. And
Mhm.
black people represented working class, so it was a cultural connection. It wasn't a black and white connection.
Okay.
Like, so you know how, you'll hear your mom like, you better get home before the street lights come on. Or,
Absolutely.
like, oh, you're going to eat that food or you're going to go to bed. That was what I grew up on. And so Black women
Okay.
and Black men were the same culture. It was
Mhm.
the thing of, that's what I connected to. I didn't connect to Black and white. I connected to the culture. And I don't think
Okay.
people really understood that that was more of a pureness. I got
Okay.
to know people for who they really were. I never got inducted or what's it called? Like, when some people give you the bad rap or they give you the bad version. I never got the bad version. I just got the pureness of a human being.
Paula,
And
that is good. That is super
um
good.
and for me, it was like I connected to they played sports. I played sports all my life. And the thing was with just genuine people, but the crazy thing was I was in the choir, but my choir director was racist or prejudiced. He used to,
Mm.
come at me at certain things, but I still had that pure heart that my parents gave me, that
Mhm.
everybody goes through things in life. And sometimes it molds and shapes the heartbeat that they're in. And it's not
Mhm.
the person itself. It's just what the cards that they've been dealt. And I realized that I had to turn that around
Mhm.
everywhere I went. And even
Mhm.
one day it was one of our choir members like, y'all better show up at this interdenominational thing done at the Ebenezer Church. And we were like, okay, we'll show up, because it was our choir member, and that's where I found World Changers. They were doing the outreach there. And I
Wow.
asked them, I said, I teach Sunday school at a Catholic church and I don't know what I'm doing. I need someone to teach me how to read this Bible thing. Because in Catholicism, you're not given the Bible.
No.
Only the elite gets to read it for you,
Yes.
And
Mhm.
so it ended up, we were basically, we were like, okay, let's go. But then that's when I met Melvin. He was over the soul winning department. And I asked him, I said, do you have any churches that do such and such, and they teach you? And he was like, well, where do you live? And I said, Sandy Springs. He said, Mount Vernon. There's a church up there. I said, no, I need to go to a Black church. I don't need to go to a white church, because I can't relate to them. It's like
Mm.
being with the horses when you've been with cows all your life. It just doesn't,
Mm.
you can't connect to it, And so, not saying horses and cows and people, but
Yeah, yeah.
I'm an animal person, so that's my nickname. So it ended up, when I went, I just felt like I was at home. And I always explain, Pastor, Creflo Dollar of the World Changers. I always explained to people when I was soul winning on the train, and I said, "You
Mhm.
ever get that teacher in high school that all the other teachers were okay, but this one teacher used to break stuff down to you about the
Mhm.
subject, and you just loved her class?"
Yes.
I said, "That's like Pastor Dollar." It was like
Okay.
he literally broke everything down for us, and I
Yes.
literally a year later, I decided, you know what? I've got to come away from a culture that I've lived all my life, which was Catholicism, and to follow
Mm.
God in a pure connection and a relationship with Him, and that's what I
So
got
let's
there.
let's talk about how you felt when okay, so when you went to the West End, you went to the Catholic Church. So you were in Black America,
Right,
okay,
right,
in the South. Now that's interesting
right,
because racism was very strong here.
right.
I was
Still is.
raised in the North,
Oh yeah,
okay,
totally different. Right,
totally different, raised in the 60s, totally different, and didn't really I wasn't around white people. The only white people that I was around with those were my teachers, if they happened to teach at a Black school. So I had
right,
Black teachers,
right,
maybe one or two white teachers, by me, that's it. So, even though I lived in the North, I still wasn't integrated with whites, okay?
right,
Because we were just in our own environment, right?
right.
So you come here at 21. So let's just back up a little bit. Let's talk about why you came. Why did you decide after college that you wanted to come to America? Why America? Why America? Why the state of Georgia and why the city of Atlanta? Why did you just
Okay,
how did you pick all of that out?
okay. When I was 6 or 7, I was really into music, and
Mhm.
my favorite artist was Michael Jackson.
Okay.
And then I did, like I was very, our family were very musically inclined. So we were singers and dancers and musicians. And so I really loved the culture. But I noticed looking back on my history and my family unit, and the crew of all of my cousins, there's always one generation that comes to the States. Like my grandmother's sister went to San Francisco in the 20s.
Oh,
So there's a
wow.
generation,
Okay.
each of us come and live here.
Mhm.
My other cousin, she was a playwright, but she went back home. She lived in New York for a while. But what happened was I was a nanny for a year,
Okay. Mhm.
and I ended up, coming to Atlanta because that was where the family was, and
Okay.
it was in Sandy Springs.
Okay.
And I think it was for me coming into a culture because the year before and last year in college, I was in DC at a Girl Scout camp. I was the
Mhm.
aquatic teacher and lifeguard. I'm still like that to today, 50, at 55, I still do that. And,
Mhm.
um, but for me, I think it was a good way for me to be introduced because I was with the family. I was
Okay.
with them at all the time. But then you started seeing different, people from England,
So
guys.
was this was a white family? This
Yeah,
was a white.
it was a
Okay.
Jewish family,
A
actually.
Jewish family.
And I
Okay.
loved it because I loved hearing about different cultures, and so it was nice to be in a Jewish culture.
Mhm.
They did the Torah, and they went to the synagogue, and I went with them because I was like, "Oh, I can't wait to see what you're doing."
Right, right,
Because when
right.
you're sheltered in a Catholicism, in a Catholic town, and in a world that's all you knew, it was
Mhm.
like, "Wow, the Torah, oh, the guy's got the thing on their shoulders, they got the ringlets I have, but they have the little ringlets and stuff," and
Mhm.
it was just like I was gobbling it up, the information, and to me, I really saw genuineness of, cultural more
Mhm.
so than the color. Like, they're
Okay.
very stuck together within their culture and their
Mhm.
religion, but they're
Mhm.
like a unit, just like, Catholicism, they're a unit. But I think for me, it was how God intended for me to be
Yeah.
sheltered to where I would step out into my world. Um,
Mm.
and it was
Literally into a whole new world. And
yeah.
then, okay, so now um, you asked Melvin. Now, was that Melvin Buford? Was that
No, that was Melvin Ward.
Melvin Ward?
Melvin Ward, he was over the
Yes,
Soul
I
Winning department.
remember
Yeah,
Melvin Ward from
yeah,
Soul Winning.
and that was
Right,
the
right,
first
right.
department I got into
Okay.
because
So he was
he
volunteering at this place where you were
Ebenezer,
at Ebenezer when y'all were
right,
doing that. So you talked to him about it. And so he was trying to recommend, I guess, churches. He's
and the
probably
white
looking at you saying, okay, so you're white. So I'm gonna like recommend some churches maybe up in the Sandy Springs area that I know about and
right,
things like that. And so here you are saying, no, I that's not what I need. What
right.
I need is I need culture. And
I
I
don't need
just
the color, I need the culture, because the
oh,
culture is
that's
what
good.
I rose up in. Because there's some
Mm,
people that are, African American, but they were rose up in middle, upper class, and they can't
mhm.
relate to working class African Americans.
Okay. Oh,
There's
that's
no
true.
connection.
That's
And
true.
see, that's where I feel that the tool of the enemy gets us so focused on the color instead of the
Mhm.
culture.
Yes.
And the culture, the threads and the patterns and the diamonds that are in culture is
Mhm.
hidden. It's
Mhm.
like some people, like some children will be so vocally like amazing with their voices, but
Mhm.
because they're in a culture, oh no, you can't sing or you can't draw.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think
Mhm.
for me, when I got into teen ministry, and I love teenagers, and that's one of the things I love, community-based projects. It's
Mhm.
to get the child to look beyond where they are
Yes,
and
yes.
to come out of the culture of where they are, where it's low
Mhm.
income, and show them a farm. That's
Yes.
my dreams, to have a farm to where they can see away from their culture and
Mhm.
to tap in.
So let me ask you this because I'm very curious about this. You sound like, oh my God, I'm very curious
My
about this.
questions now, right?
I mean, I told you, like, it'll just our conversation will just ask, so many questions will come to me. So what was the dialect like when you got to the South?
It was miserable.
Because I remember you now, see, your accent is more
American man.
Americanized now,
Mhm. Right,
but you had your very strong Irish accent when I first met you.
right.
And
It
what was
started
the dialect that? Because see, the dialect here in Atlanta is a lot different from up north. So I'll have people will say to me, "Where are you from?" Because you're not from Atlanta. Now, I was born in Philadelphia, raised in Philadelphia, But my family up in Philadelphia will say to me, "You've been down in Atlanta too long because you got that little Southern twang." And I'm like, "I don't have a Southern twang." But people
Right.
from the South will say, "You're not." They immediately call me out and say, "Well, where are you from?"
You're a Northerner. That's what they usually
I'm
call
like,
you.
"I'm from the North." But how
Right.
did you? I've been in Atlanta 30 some years. Like my son was 2 months old. My youngest was 2 months old when he came here. He's 32 years old now. So it's like, I've been in Atlanta. They were like, "Well, yeah, well, you sure are not from here." So we could tell. So what was the dialect like for you when you came to the Black church?
Well, let's go back to the white church. They kept
Okay.
having me to repeat
So
myself,
we
and that
haven't even,
irritated me. It
so
was
you
like,
had to
"Huh?
repeat yourself a
What did
lot.
you say?" And I'm like, "I've said it 4 times already." And so for me being a communicator, and God has blessed me to be a communicator, um, I I communicate with people, so I'm talking. So when you had to cut that off or stop me in a slower version, that was another thing too. Like Georgians were very slow thinkers.
Mhm,
Their
mhm,
their their speech and their thought are very slow and
mhm,
methodical, and they take their
mhm.
time and, "Hey, y'all,"
Yeah.
like, everything is but for me, it was like, "Duh-duh-duh-duh,"
Mhm,
and then Irish people, we have a dancing to our voice, like, we
mhm.
go "duh-duh-duh-duh-duh," like
Yeah,
right, and so it's
that
kinda like the Irish dancing, and was the same with the voice, and it ended up I got so tired of talking, it was like, I didn't even wanna talk, and that's like cutting my limb off,
Wow.
and but when I got to the African American culture, I was teaching school, and I learned when the kids were saying something back to me in my accent, I knew I then had to kinda change some things about how I
Oh,
spoke,
wow.
because they were like, "Turned it off?" And I was like, "What did you just say?" So,
I
I
can still hear it a little
and
bit
I'm
when you say
tired.
things like "about."
But
Uh,
the T, we don't pronounce our T's like little,
le
bottle. We
ok
don't you'll never get
okay.
I'll always have that.
Yeah,
But,
I can still hear a little bit, but definitely, I can definitely say that you've been kinda like Americanized in terms of the dialect.
most
So
definitely.
so so, because I found it difficult when I first came to Atlanta, to just people would finna do stuff, and I'd say, "What is that? What are you
Or
doing?"
cut
It's
the
like, "Oh, we
light off.
finna,"
Right,
or cut the light off. We don't like, why do we cut it off? Why don't we turn it off? Like,
right,
or cut the TV on.
right.
Um, they would, up in Philly, we would say, "Oh, that person is so newsy," right? And they
Oh,
would say,
okay.
"You're what?" And I'm like, "Y'all so newsy." But here it's, "You're very nosy." But
Mhm.
it's, we have in Atlanta, they have this little twang. Y'all finna go around and say, twang, and I'm like, "What are you saying?" So
I
I
think you
can,
probably sound more black than you are, because 'cause I've learned to integrate my culture to it, like, "Yo, what's up?" Because I used to work for this
yeah.
company.
Oh my God, you said you can sound more black than me.
Exactly, because this is what's happened. I've been on the phone with like, when I was a executive assistant for a security company, the officers used to come down to do some part-time work, and so I'd be on the phone with Officer Jones. I said, "Just come in, ask for Miss Armstrong, blah, blah, blah." I'm on the phone. So when
Mhm.
they come in, they're like, "Hey, can I talk to Miss Armstrong?" I was like, "Hey," and they're like, "Can I talk to Miss Armstrong?" I said, "You thought I was black, didn't you?" And that's my running joke because everybody think I'm black on the phone, but I'm not. I've just been around black folk for 35 years. Um,
35
but
years.
I but a part of me was, being transparent. I wanted to fit in. I didn't fit
Mm,
in with the white people here, but I
wow.
saw the culture and the mannerisms and the love that they showed to family units. I wanted to be a part of that.
Mhm,
I felt
mhm.
like I had to camouflage myself into it to be accepted and loved.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
that's just real talk.
Yes.
And I've grown up since then, but it's the fact of I can literally like the teenagers, I remember when we had the tornado stuff going on, and the kids came to the church and we were welcoming them in, and I would play around with the boys and I would like, "Yo, what's up?" And they'd be like, "Oh." Like it was
Did y'all
just
hear
so
Miss Paula?
it was so foreign to them because they didn't never see like in Louisiana, they never saw white people like, "Yo, what's up?" Or like, "Hey
Yeah.
man, what's up?" And I'd be dabbing and they're like, "I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready." But that was my ice-breaking moment,
Yes.
to make them feel loved and welcomed.
So
And
how did you feel? Okay, so now you've moved from SWATs to from a Catholic church, and you finally, what was your first visit to World Changers? which was
It was a Friday
a
night.
predominantly Black church. I
Right.
mean, it's integrated now, but back then when we met, it was all. I think you were
It was
probably the
Yeah,
only
that was
white
the
person
yeah, there
besides
was
maybe
one.
Mike Smith.
Well, and this is the whole funny story about it. It was like there was an older white lady who was married to a Black gentleman, and they were in their 60s.
Hmm.
But, you would see them on a Wednesday night or a Friday night. And back then, there was only like 1,900 of us when
Hmm.
I joined in 90 or 89.
Hmm.
But I remember I was the only one, and then Mike was coming along, and they used to
Hmm.
think one or two things. Well, in the early days, they thought we were brother and sister, and I was like,
Hmm.
"Ew," you know? And then later when he met Connie, they were like, "Hey, Mrs. Smith, your husband's," and I'm like, "Mrs. Smith? That's my sister's married name." Oh, like, "No, he's marrying another girl. It's not me. I'm his sister," you know? So they used to clump us together thinking, "Oh, the 2 white people," you know?
Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
remember one of my friends said, "Paula, I remember when I first met you." His name is Alan, and, he's a TED Talk speaker, but I think he was a teenager then. He said, "I was thinking I was one of the first people met you." He said, "A
Hmm.
week later, everybody knew who Paula was, the white girl," and that was my nickname, the white
I
girl.
know it's White Paula.
White Paula, like, it was like the white girl, and
That's just, first of all, that's politically incorrect. But
right,
I mean, that's how they, because there were other Paulas in the church. When it was like
right.
when they wanted to identify you, they would say, "Oh no, White Paula."
Yeah, or like, Paula, the white girl that sings in the
Yeah,
choir,
the white girl that sings in this
Right.
Black gospel choir.
Right, and so but, I came from a family of singers and musicians, so,
Right.
music is music. Because in Europe, we do not categorize or colorize. We just if we like rock and roll and it's Led Zeppelin, we love it.
Right.
But here it was like I noticed that too when I came here. I mean, George Benson was one of my favorite singers, and
Okay.
the thing was, "What you listen to George Benson
Why are
for?"
you listening to George?
Right, and that was kinda like I had to go through all that thing of like, "Okay, let's go through the story again." Europeans do not categorize black and white or all white folk listen to this, rock and roll or country, and then black people listen to R&B and jazz and blues.
Hmm.
You just listen to every genre, and so for me,
Hmm.
I felt like I had the best of both worlds, but
Right.
when I came in, I related more so to the black community, but, it hadn't been always, roses, a bed of
Hmm.
roses. There was a lot of racism, a lot of hatred, even within the church. I would
Hmm.
get notes, racial notes put in my Bible,
Wow.
and
No
no.
way.
Yeah, but for me, I looked at the core of who World Changers were, which was love. And I
Hmm.
will never
Hmm.
forget that 35 years later, that it was love. They just truly loved me, and they were always looking out for me or like, "Paul, you got it?
Yeah.
You good?" And even when I was riding the bus, I had a choir or, like a church member take me home because he lived in Sandy Springs. And
Hmm.
so it was I really feel like I got the best of both worlds, but also I got to be loved by people that were misunderstood.
Yes.
I asked one time, I was walking down the street and someone said cracker. And so I went back to somebody in church. I said, somebody was screaming cracker outside the window. What was that about? And they were like, "Oh, that's what we call y'all crackers." And I was like, "Wheat, white, which one was it?" And I made a joke out of it, but I was like, "Cracker." So I was
Hmm.
starting to see both sides of how they were called the N word, and
Hmm.
black folk called us certain words, but I never took it personally because
Yes.
my core and my foundation for American culture and black culture was love.
Yes.
Even though you would have those little seeps of racism or prejudice, it still was the core of human beings.
Hmm.
Human beings want to be loved, and I feel
Yes.
like no matter what race, religion, or height, site, whatever you are, you want to be loved, and that's my core. That's my
Yeah.
core for everything I do now. I don't care if you're in sexuality or what sexuality you're in. You're a human being,
Yes.
and God told me to
Absolutely.
love
At the
you.
core, absolutely.
Yeah, and I feel like, I think sometimes and this is the first time I've really kind of people will really know because some people will be probably listening like, "I didn't know Paul was Irish," you know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we do have a comment out here that somebody says that they didn't know you were from Atlanta.
Oh, no.
But we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Exactly. That's why this is called Speak Out Loud, the story behind the brand, because everyone has a story
Right,
behind their why. And
right,
I've known you for years, but
right.
I've never had an opportunity to even sit down and ask you, these questions
We were always
about
working, Lynette. When we were in
I know
church,
I
we
was
had like 5 jobs at church, like 5 different departments. So it
I
wasn't like
know, I
you were
did
just in
it.
the choir. You were like ushering, running to get your robe on, then getting your shirt on to say bye to people,
Yeah,
or
I mean, I
you
did.
know,
I did a lot of things inside of the church. So answer this question because I'm curious about this. Because I mean, of course, so I feel like I can fit in with a variety of groups of people, races, and I've only once or twice maybe have been really kind of called out of my name. You know, I've been called the N word.
yeah,
And it was very shocking to me, very, very heartbreaking for me. But in essence, I've never had that challenge with feeling like I had to fit into a different culture. Now, if I was to probably try to move to Ireland or to some other place that is not predominantly Black or don't have many Blacks, I would probably feel very challenged with trying to fit into the culture. Give us something, tell us one or two things that you found very challenging for you, um, that made you have to really step out of your comfort zone when going to at that time, a all Black church in College Park, Georgia, like World Changers.
yeah. I think I think for me initially it was you stay in your place. You stay in your white
Mm,
place. Um,
wow.
and that was
Because
where the
this is like
letter
a Black church and you white, you don't
why you here?
understand. Yeah,
You know,
why you
don't come
here?
near our
Wow.
black man, they're ours. And I still deal
Oh
with that
my
now.
God.
Yeah, I still deal with that now. And I have to still look at the core
I'm
of
sorry to say this. Let me just say this. That's just ignorance.
right.
And
Yeah.
I'm grateful. I'm very, very grateful, Paula, that you had the fortitude and the tenacity and the strength to stay because you've impacted so many people's lives. There are many students that are grown today that are going off to do wonderful, wonderful things that have come through your teachings and your handling and your personality. And the students, they loved you. And so I'm just grateful to God that I'm grateful that I know you, but I'm definitely grateful to God that you stayed, that you didn't run, because I could feel like that could be a very easy thing for you to do, is to say, I didn't come here to try to get nobody's husband. Because I mean, come on, like this Black man of ours, like
Right.
that's just dumb
Well, the thing was I
and
remember
ignorant. Yes,
yeah, I remember
absolutely.
pastor used to when you come into a culture and then I mean, I've been wanting a black man since I was 7. When I
Mhm.
saw Michael Jackson on the LP that my dad bought for my birthday,
You
I
said,
was like, "Oh, he's cute."
Yeah,
And,
no.
it ended up until he turned white, but it was kinda like I that's always my running joke. Until he turned white, I
You
went
said,
like,
wait. So you wanted Michael Jackson because he was Black until he turned until he turned white.
because I'm a firm believer God puts a desire in you before you want it. I have
Yes.
never dated a white guy and I never
Okay.
will, but
Wow.
it's but for me it was that part of it was hatred and it was cruel to
Yes.
try to tell someone that they couldn't have something they desired all their lives.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
it
it
was
is.
vindictive but I knew the place it was coming from. A lot of
Yes.
times women don't know their worth or they don't know that they have a man just for them.
Mhm.
And you don't have to hate on another woman because they want a certain caliber or they want a tall guy and you want tall guys. It's almost like we got a pool that there's 1,000 of us women after 2 men. God has a lid for every pot. There's an expression.
Oh,
And I
that's
look at
good.
that. God created you. He created your husband for you.
Mhm.
And for
I
me,
like that.
that was the cruel part, but I think it was overshadowed a lot by the love, the genuine love that
Okay.
people
Thank
have
God for
for
God's love, right?
yeah,
Thank
it
God
was
for the
kinda
love
like
of the
genuine.
church.
It was like being
Yes.
in the choir, that was another thing. In
Now,
European
there
culture
was some love there though. That
well,
was
oh
that
god, yeah, chapel days for us was like we were family,
yes,
like we were there like 7 days a
truly.
week. We had to be family. But I remember, the other part was the fact that we we as a group of human beings, we
Mhm.
had to get along. We
Mhm.
had to. And there's times just like you get fell out with your sister or
Mhm.
it was there, but I think what overshadowed everything was the fact that I knew I had a call on my life and I never knew
Okay.
that. until
Okay.
I came to World Changers. There were so
Oh,
many
wow,
great
that's a
things that
blessing.
happened while I was there, but the main thing was a lot of times you've gotta overshadow a lot of the bad things that you see, because even in being in the choir, people were like, back in the choir days, and Lynette, you were in there too, you had to go to an audition. You weren't getting in there because you could just blow, or
No, ma'am.
well, I can sing, because sometimes they try and we were like, "You cannot be in this choir." But we went through a rigorous, auditions,
Absolutely.
but people didn't realize I had rhythm, because I've noticed, and this is a running joke, I would say, the white people that got here lost it on the boat over because they had no rhythm over here. I'm like, "What are they doing? They're flailing their arms around," In Ireland, we can dance and sing, and that was
Right.
we're on beat. So I would
Okay.
make a joke of, like, offbeat, but then I'd be rocking it, and they were like, "Oh, she can dance, like, she
Right.
rocking with us,"
I
and
mean, hey, I love watching the river dance, and if you don't think people in Ireland have that
oh
whole
god,
river dance thing
that's a
down,
class. And my sister was All Ireland
woo,
champion of Irish dancing, so
wow.
yeah, my uncles and aunts, they're all big champions, and I
And
never took it
and
up.
the music, the beats that they
Yeah,
have is just really like, I mean, it's powerful. I've gone to see the river dancing before, and
right.
the way they stand and their feet. Like, I
Oh,
mean,
it's definitely it's
that's
muscle.
incredible.
You're
So no,
muscle
you
from head to your
right.
toe, but I think that was a part of the culture I had to give away t I had to stand up for myself because
Yes.
African Americans, black I just say black folk, but black folk were like, "All white people can't dance, all white people can't sing." And, back in the '90s, it was like that was some of the best music that came out in the '90s, and they were like,
Mhm.
"How do you know about Jodeci? How do you know about
Yeah.
Keith Sweat?" I'm like, "Man, are you serious? Those were
Are
the
you
jams back
kidding?
then." And that was my thing, like, even before I came to World Changers and the Black culture, whatever, we used to have, like, Irish and people from England, we were all nannies together, so we would go out clubbing. I just wanted to dance, but they wanted to
Okay.
drink. So I was
Okay.
a designated driver all the time, and so Thursday through Sunday, we were out every night, and but when I came to World Changers, it was the fact that, "Oh, I'm auditioning, why?" Because God told me. It was like, "Go in the choir," and I'm like, "Do I have to?" Like, I don't like being up in
So
front of
he
people
was stretching you this whole time,
the whole
stepping
time.
you. That's why I said, in the very beginning, like, today my guest will share her entire life has been coming out of her comfort zone. I
Right,
mean, you
and
even when
that's
you
what the
got
journey's
inside of
about.
the church is to move out of your comfort zone and go
Right,
into the gospel choir. And I mean,
right.
that was the instrument of praise, honey. Let me just tell
Yeah,
you,
and we were renowned in Atlanta,
we
like, we
was
were
renowned.
right,
That
we went to, where was it called? Fort Worth, Texas, to sing for
absolutely,
Copeland's, and,
absolutely.
for us, it was like we were like celebrities, and
Absolutely.
we
Had a
had
it
some
has a CD that, they cut a CD.
exactly,
So
it
a
was a lot of
very
stuff.
powerful, powerful
But
CD.
that was the difference between, like, now the churchy choirs are more for performance. We were really the anointing of God.
It was ministry.
Yes, it
Mhm.
was ministry, but also the anointing was so heavy when we sung because we
Well,
were women.
I remember us being in choir rehearsal
Yes.
in the chapel, and
Mhm.
with James Pullen. And I'm gonna tell you
Yeah,
something. If somebody could get born again, people would come off the street.
yeah,
They would hear us. They would know if they were just kind of walking by or coming by, and they would come down to the chapel.
right,
We would have people sit there and they would cry out. People would get healed
right,
in rehearsal.
right,
They would get healed. They would get born again. They would rededicate their lives to Christ. It was just so rehearsals was such like it was like a service almost
right,
because we
right,
prayed. We were really one family. And
right,
so I guess if you're going to be indoctrinated uh, into a culture, that was the best way for you
right,
to be
right.
brought into a culture is to come to a black church and to also go
Well,
to
in the Catholic Church in in the Black church in the West End, they were about the N. I can't say the word. I refuse to say that word, but Negros. Spiritual,
Mhm,
the
mhm.
spiritual hymns.
Oh,
We
the
did a
Negro
lot of
spirituals, yeah.
yeah, we
Mhm.
did a lot of that back in the Catholic Church in the West
Okay.
End. So I got to be introduced to a lot of because in high school I read a lot of Martin Luther King's books in the library. So
Mhm,
just to hear
mhm.
those songs that they sung back in the '60s and the '40s and but then it was so, cultural. You were in the West End.
Mhm.
But then it was things of like, I would, want to have, the thing that you put over the shoulder, all the colors. I was like, oh, I love these colors. I would have people grab it and like, you're not supposed to wear that.
Now you can't wear that
Yeah,
because you're
that's
white.
our stuff. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think because of slavery and how culturally that you were stripped of every culture from Africa,
Mhm.
then you want our stuff too. That was kind of like their
Yeah,
attitude, and
okay.
I
Wow.
empathize with them. It wasn't like, why can't I wear it and fight about it? I'm going to wear what I want to wear, but it was more like, I empathize, I understand,
Yes,
because in
yes.
Ireland we went through the same thing, the famine. In
Mm.
Ireland, we owned the land, but the British came in and took our land. They
Yes.
made us work on the land that we owned, and
That's
we were
right.
paying rent. And then
Exactly.
they destroyed the potatoes, so we would starve to death. And that was the big famine. So, not putting anything side by side.
No, no,
Man,
but
empathy
no.
was there. Um, but I think again, you have to stand up for yourself because someone can intimidate you
Yeah,
into your culture.
yeah.
But I'm not no longer will I stand up and be a person that's like, "Oh, okay, like don't get mad." I'm just like, "Look, I love you. I'm coming from a good place. Embrace me because we will grow together, but
Mhm.
we will not be fighting against each other because that's what
Wow.
the higher part they want us to fight with each other.
Right,
And I
right,
refuse
right.
to like teenagers, it was the same way.
Yeah.
They looked
Well,
at you
we
like
have a
you couldn't
couple
stand.
people out here that are making some comments, so we're going to bring
Uh-oh.
them out. So you have hello, Miss Beautiful Lynette, and then here it is. I see what that is. It's actually from Clarence. Hello, Clarence. We also call him Simba. And somebody says, hello, Ms. Paula.
Uh-oh.
So I don't know who you are. It just says Facebook user. It says hello, Ms. Paula. So if you're still listening out there, please put your name in there so that Ms. Paula,
Okay, you're like intimidating. You're trying because you're not even going to try to show your face,
right,
so I can
so
see
that
when I get back
Ms.
on Facebook who
Paula
you were. That's
will know
okay.
who you
We'll
is.
let you be an incognito this time.
Right. And another person says, this is interesting. And then we have Gloria Moore Carter. She says, good evening. So good to be here. Lynette, so very proud of you. Gloria Moore Carter from Fayetteville, North Carolina. Thank you so much for listening and watching and supporting us on this podcast. And then someone says, hello, ladies. Well, hello back at you. And here's
Uh-huh.
the person that says, Paula is from Atlanta. Never knew this story. Now I know. Well, this is the story behind the brand. And you know what? To be honest with you, like I've known you for all these years, but
Right.
you and I have never intimately had this type of conversation.
No.
And about like when you came over here and then why Atlanta. Now I know.
Right.
Now I know. So let's talk about your podcast. You just started. You have about how many episodes in now?
I'm into my 6th one.
You're
I'm
into your
starting on
6th?
my number 6.
Well,
So
you're gonna get a lot more followers because we're going to support you, and because you are stepping out of your comfort zone
most
to
definitely.
start a podcast. And
Right.
I just love it when people first step out of their comfort zone, number one. But number two, I love when people are saying, I have never done this before and I'm going to start a podcast, and
Right.
they
Right.
start talking.
Right.
So tell us about the Journey podcast and why you named it The Journey.
It was 2 years ago. I had other projects, documentaries on the table, and then all of a sudden, God out of the blue said a podcast because it'll be the verbal part of getting your stuff out there. So I'm thinking, oh yeah, we can hire John Doe and he's going to be the host. And okay, cool, we'll write it down. And I mean, I will write it down and produce it or whatever. And even then, I've never produced before. I've never been a creative director before. And so this past
But
year,
you are now.
I am now, right? But I think it had to do with all what I came through. It became a fabric of who I am now. No test or trial has ever been on. It's never been a waste. It's been
Yes.
who I am now,
Mhm.
and I feel like the journey. I said, God, what am I going to call it? Because I'm all about, okay, God, you said it. What's it look like? What have I got to do? I'm taking my hands off of it. And basically, he was saying, everybody has a journey.
Yes.
Everybody has different fabrics in their journey and in their life. And what works for you may not work for another person. But why don't you open the floodgates and show and give people the platform to speak about their journey and find out
Okay.
how they did it, what happened, what was the pitfalls, what was the mountaintops, what was the valleys, and how they got out of it. Because
Mhm.
there's next month it's going to be a segment on power couples. You know,
Mhm.
we talk a lot about marriages and how it works, where it doesn't work. But what happens when they have jobs, they have high powered jobs? How does that work within a culture that is
Correct.
the husband's the breadwinner and the wife is the housewife? You know, and it's going to be how did they get through some of those trials? Even if someone was homeless and then they're a
Mhm.
Fortune 500 company now, how did they get their mindset from being homeless to
Mhm.
where they are now? What was the steps that they made? What was the downfalls?
Right.
So someone can pull and say, "Well, I'm a doctor, but I can't relate to this blue collar worker,"
Mhm.
or "I'm a blue collar worker and I can't relate to this psychologist." But you
Mhm.
can because you're human,
Yes.
and it's
First.
kind of yeah, you're a human first, and you're kind of taking the doctor off the table and putting the human being on the table in
Yes.
front of the mic and letting them talk from
That's
their
how
heart.
we should be thinking,
Right.
but
And
we
I
don't always think about that because we are identified by what we do, not
right.
who we are.
And I think that's something, especially with women.
Mhm.
Um, I grew up because of the bad raps that I got with women in this
Mhm.
culture. I never went to women's conventions unless I was singing at it. It was like, I'm
Mhm.
looking around these bunch of women, and I was
Mhm.
just shunning them. But I know that's what God's called me to be because you have to know your worth. And people
Yes.
throw that out all the time, but your worth is like it's and I learned this season of my life that my worth was not based on who I was and what I did for a living. And
Right.
we do that. We are like, "Oh, I'm a high-powered executive," but you're broken inside when you get home and you take off your heels and you put your briefcase
Mhm.
on the
Mhm.
table, and nobody knows it but you. Those silent
Mhm.
things, and I feel like through my journey, I went through a lot of stuff. You know, my parents, I didn't mention that, but my mother died 11 months before I moved out here, and my
Oh,
father
wow.
died 6 days after I moved out here.
No
And
way.
11 months within each other. They were, he was diagnosed well, he was told that he died of a broken heart. Um, and so for me, I was in some kind of shock when I first came here, and I
Mhm.
longed for that family, and I
Yes.
feel like the journey is like a new family for people that they can tune in. They can be anonymous, they can just
Mhm.
listen, and
Yes.
someone can get up and say, "You know what? I was a high-powered executive. I lost everything. I
Mhm.
miscarried. I was cutting myself. I was trying to commit suicide, whatever that is.
Mhm.
Every person who comes on the journey is going to speak of their journey. And
Correct.
someone in the airwaves are going to relate to it and find out
Absolutely.
what did that
So
person do to get out of that? You know,
right. So
so
you've done this, you're on your 6th podcast.
yeah, I'm going on my
You
sixth one. Yes,
yeah, so you've done some, really interesting first of all, I want to just encourage you to keep going.
I am.
Because it can be difficult. I'm this the Speak Out Loud podcast is 1 years old. It's 1 year's last month.
Right.
And as of like the 31st of January, we were one. And so it's a lot. It takes a lot of work.
It does.
And my podcast, of course, is a visual podcast. So, it's important. And I do some things by myself where I podcast by myself, but I mainly this platform is to showcase other people. This is what this platform is for, is to tell the story behind the brand of other people.
Right.
As I tell the story behind my brand every week.
Right.
But I just want to encourage you to keep going. You can call me, you can text me, you can email me if you have questions.
Right.
I've been doing this, I've produced other people's podcasts for them. So if you have questions about graphics or audit or editing or anything like that, you just call me because, we are here. There are millions of podcasts out there, but we are here to help each other.
Right.
And I'm here because, and I'm like, some people are like, why would you have another podcaster on your shows? Because
Why
I
not?
mean, her genre is different from my genre, and it's not
Right.
about that. It is about helping her get her podcast out to other people. So now you've talked about the journey, part one, and then you talked about observations. Talk a little bit about what that show is about and why'd you name it
Um,
Observations?
what happens is a lot of times we're on our journey or our tests and trials. We don't really we're looking at it from a different viewpoint. We're looking at it from a victim viewpoint as opposed to a victor
Hmm.
viewpoint. Because when
Okay.
you're looking from a victim, it's no hope. And then
Hmm.
you start to spiral further down. But God shows us and tells us, look at what you see. The
Mhm.
reason why you keep going off, like your temper is flailing because you don't feel like you're understood. You don't feel like you're heard. You have to look
Mhm.
at those little nuggets that God is showing you. What
Okay.
happened in your childhood? Were you not heard?
Mhm.
Were you not given the floor when the teacher was giving people the floor? You were always last to get up on the stage or
Mhm.
whatever that is. And the observation shows you where you've came from, where you are presently, and where you're
Mhm.
going ahead. If you don't observe that trajectory, if you don't observe what's around you, you'll stay stuck.
This is going to
Right?
be a good podcast, y'all. She's got good stuff. What about the blueprint?
Oh, the blueprint. This is something I tell people when I'm out in the street ministering. Because sometimes people don't really know their purpose. They don't
Mhm.
really know that they were born with purpose and
Mhm.
they were strategically born.
Yes.
Some people think that they were not supposed to be born.
Yeah, they think they're just here.
Right. And so I always give this scenario of, God looked down on it. He created us. Like, for instance, he created Lynette
Mhm.
and he put you in a blueprint
Mhm.
and then he rolled it up and he put it
Mhm.
in the big long container thing for the architect, the builder to go ahead and build it.
And build it.
Then he breathed life into your mother's womb.
That's so awesome.
And, God gave me that scenario, but then there's a layer to it to where a lot of times in our journey, we're supposed to be a teacher or we're supposed to
Mhm.
be a doctor, but you're in your second residency and you're like, no finances, you don't know where it's coming from. But you have to keep looking at the last part of your life, which is your
Mhm.
completion.
Mhm.
Like I tell people all the time, it's when a contractor is given the big, blueprint, sometimes you may have a back order on cement. So now
Mhm.
you have to go to the windows section because you don't require cement for the windows to be put in. So
Mhm.
even though the blueprint is the house of every intricate detail of the house built or being built, we have to realize that every part of that house requires a timing,
Mhm.
requires material, and
Mhm.
sometimes your cement may be on the back order, so the garage is on hold because
Correct.
cement needs to go on that garage floor, right? And so we have to learn when we're in that journey part that we have to be patient even in those times where the back order's on there and we have to say, well, he's working on the kitchen cabinets.
Mhm.
He's
Mhm.
working on the fireplace that doesn't
Yes.
require cement. And so
Okay.
it makes it a lot easier and a lot more the observation part to look at your situation with a different set of eyes. God set of
Mhm.
eyes.
So let's talk about the pivot.
Oh man, pivoting. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Pivoting is when you're on 285 and you see that traffic and you're not going anywhere for 45 minutes. And then you see your navigation system and you're like, please turn right. And you're like, God, why are you making me go right? He's
Yeah.
taking you on a back road.
I fight with my I fight with my
You're like,
navigational
shut
system all
up,
the time.
right?
I'm always telling it like, why are you taking me this way? I know, but in Atlanta, you have to admit, in Atlanta,
oh God, yeah.
you can know where you're going, but you do need to put on the navigational
Most
system
definitely.
because you don't know what's ahead of you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that is something that when I listen to you have a podcast out here called Trust in Your Navigational System. When
Right.
I listen to that, what reminded me of is just simply knowing that you have to trust God
Most
and you have
definitely.
to trust Him because He knows what's ahead. And so when people don't understand what the GPS system is,
Right.
and it really goes up to the satellite and beams down what the information that's
needed.
ahead of you,
Right.
and so that you will be able to know. And so sometimes we fight against that navigational system. We fight against it because it's like, why are you taking me this way? Why do I have to do this, God? Or why do I have to do
Right.
that, God? And He is just saying, trust the process. If today I'm taking you on
Right.
285, then go get on 285.
Right.
But the key thing for me is when you put something in the navigational system, it also tells you what time you're expected to arrive.
Exactly.
And it takes into consideration all of the delays
Right.
that are there. So that's what the GPS does. And it'll tell you that you're expected to arrive at 3:30. And so it doesn't matter if you've been rerouted all over the place. The key thing for me that I always tell people, Paula, is to make sure that you're going to arrive at your destination at the set time that you want
Right.
to arrive at your
Right.
destination. And sometimes you will be pivoted and sometimes you will be rerouted in order to do that. Man, it has been an hour already, Paula,
Oh, wow.
and I am just super excited. I would love to have you come back on the podcast. Miss Gloria says that this is so good and so
Oh, wow.
familiar. Thank
That's
you so
awesome.
much. I know it's so awesome. And I would really love to have you come back and share some more information and talk about some more of your shows and
Well, I need you to
what
do
you're
the
doing.
we need to do the navigation system. You're going to be doing number 5.
Okay,
That's
I'll
the
come
second
on your
part of it.
listen. I will come on your podcast and I will do the navigational system
Right,
because
right.
listen, because I have fought my navigational system. I'd be like,
Well, if you
look,
notice that, like, you get when you're in that moment, you're getting frustrated
yeah,
because you're looking
very
at the end
frustrated.
result, and it's like, I need to get there at this certain time. But God is saying, even though you're supposed to be getting into a meeting, guess what? Those other people are late too. And
Absolutely,
it's like you're
absolutely,
right on time, and you have to trust
absolutely.
the one who
You're
operates
always right on time, and even
always.
sometimes we can think that we're not on time with our purpose.
Right.
And we were like, well, I just didn't do what I needed to do. And I just like, no, you're on time. I
God will
had
give you
someone
the time.
tell me, they said, if I told you at 18 what I'm about to tell you now, you would be very upset. And I was like, what? They were like, you're just stepping into the thing that God has called you to do. Like you're
Yeah.
just getting it right at 60, almost. I'm actually 61. I'll be 62.
No, she's
in
not. She's 29. She's 29.
Girl, you better say that, girl. I'll be 62. I'll be 62 this year. But they said to me, yeah, and you're going to seriously peak. You're going to really arrive and peak at what you're doing when you hit 64. So if I had told you that when you were 18, you'd be like, well, what is this about?
Right.
And I think that sometimes we feel like we're not on time, but we are right on time. Before, we're right on time. So, okay. It's my niece, Doreen Sterling. What's up, Doe? She said,
Hi.
pleasure meeting you, Paula.
Oh, thank you. Pleasure meeting you too, Doreen. Thanks for
Thank you
reaching
so
out.
much for supporting you. I will call you later, darling. I know I owe you a call. But before we go, I just would love for you just to look in to your camera and just share with someone something. Take a minute or two or a minute or second or so just to just wrap up and tell somebody, encourage somebody today from whatever's on your heart.
Right. I think the main thing is, there's something inside of you that no matter where you've gone, what city you've been in, what part of life you've been in your journey, there's something in you that never dies. It's a dream and a desire and a vision that God has given you, and it's not going anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere until you step out on it. And you don't have to have all the parts. You don't have to have all the intricate details or the plans. You just have to step and ask God, where do I go next?
Yes.
Because I'm a living witness to that. Like I left these projects on the table for 2 years and I couldn't do it anymore because it kept eating away at me. And there's something in you that it could be anything. It's like you're wanting your bills to be paid, but God's trying to get you to do this dream or this desire. And that's where your money's coming through, or that's where your desire or your husband or whatever that is you're desiring. And I think you cannot go by what you see. You've got to look at the prize. You've got to look at the dream. And it's never going to let you sleep. So I might as well tell you ahead of time. It's always going to be in you. You're always going to have to do it. It's going to be right in here in your heart as a passion, and it won't stop until you do it.
Yes.
So you might as well get on the bandwagon or get back up on the horse, as they say,
and go ahead and do it.
And go and do it. Do the small things. Like my mentor always tells me, Chandria Shante, it's like, do it small. Yes. If you're a photographer and you want to have a thing, get your iPhone, get your Android. Yeah. And my condolences for Android users, but it's
Me too.
Get
my
your
condolences to you guys.
Get your iPhone, exactly. Get your iPhone out and take pictures. Like if anybody goes on my Facebook pages or my Instagram or my TikTok pages, I have a lot of stuff about the project Embracing Your Gray, but it's by clouds. It's it's all these different things. But I started that when I started walking, was taking pictures again. But I graduated art school. I'm doing now what I did. It's never too late because
you're going back to your first love.
My first love. And I said that to one of my friends on Sunday. He's an artist too. And I said, you believe I'm actually doing what I was graduate college in? And I was 21. I'm 55 now. And I said,
isn't God, he's amazing. He takes you right back to that thing that he's placed in your heart that sometimes we get derailed off of, or I like to say sometimes we'll get off of an exit and stay too long.
Right.
If you're supposed to be driving down to Tampa and you know you have to take 75 south, and you
Right.
get off at exit 235 because you see the Tanger outlet. You know,
I knew you were gonna
you
say
can
that,
go
like
to,
the Tanger
because you
outlet.
know I love a Tanger outlet, but you can go to the Tanger outlet,
Right.
but you're not supposed to live at the Tanger outlet
Right.
because you will never make it to your destination, which is Tampa. You
Right.
can go there, stop, go to the bathroom, maybe have something to eat, and maybe stop by the Coach outlet
Right.
and grab some stuff, or the Haynes outlet, or do a little shopping. And then
Right.
you can come back and get in the car and you keep going, but you're not supposed to pack up and live and stay there. And I
Right.
think that sometimes people do that. They will be on their trail, they'll be on their path, and then they will be diverted by distraction, by
Right.
issues of life, by health, by wealth, whatever. It'll derail them, and then they feel like this is where I am.
Right.
And I love the fact that you got back to your comfort zone. I love the fact that you got out of your comfort zone, that you got back to the thing that you loved so much, and that I applaud you for stepping out. In many ways, in all of your life,
Right.
has been a stepping out of a comfort zone.
Right.
Because I don't know whether I would have been able to come to a whole nother country and then go to a whole nother culture and
Right.
do this. But you know what?
I
Your
think it was
story is
always
different from
God
my
intended.
story.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's always God intended, but also going back to that thing God has put in you,
Yes.
you don't have to have all the parts in place to
Yes.
start it.
Just
You
do
just
it.
have to step out on it. Like, I don't care
Just
if
step out of it.
I want to do
Mhm.
murals around the city. Go to the Lowe's and say, "Hey, have you got any paint that you want to donate?"
Mhm.
It's like you don't have to have the money. Just say, "God told you
Just
to
the
go home."
passion. Just the
Just the
passion.
fact that you'll take one
Yes.
step and God told
Yes.
it's almost like God is running the ship, but he just wants you to get on the ship.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're
Right.
trying to figure out, how do we get on the ship, or how am I gonna climb up there? Don't
Or I
figure
don't
out
have the
the
money to get on the ship.
I don't have the
I
money
don't
to
have
get
the
on the ship.
clothes to get on the ship. I don't
Right.
have the status to get on the ship. And
Right.
he was like, but I didn't ask you that. It's kind
Yeah.
of like the guy at the gate called Beautiful.
Yes.
When Jesus came to him and said, that's
Yeah,
probably one
victim
of my favorite
mentality.
story. He had a
Right.
victim mentality. And he said, do you want to be made whole? And I recently saw that. I saw that on television, and I was like, oh, I'm going to see one of my favorite Bible stories. And he said,
Right.
oh, you want to be made whole. And he was like, I
Right,
don't have
right.
nobody to put me in the pool. And I was like, dude, I remember reading that first time in the Bible. And the first thing that came to my mind was, that was not the question he asked. He asked if you wanted to be made whole.
But
So
don't we do
really,
that with people when they confront us about our stuff? We'll be
mhm,
like, "But did you not know Johnny was supposed to give me $5 last week?"
exactly, I can't
honest
do
with
it.
him. You're right.
Because Johnny didn't do it, or I don't have paintbrushes, or I don't have paint. So,
Right.
like, you just gave a great analysis of like, hey, go into Lowe's and say, do you got any paint you want to donate? Or going to an art shop and say, listen, I'm just trying to start. Do you got anything you want to donate? So you don't have to necessarily have all the pieces. The African proverb says, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so we have to be able to do that. One,
Like an
I don't
animal activist, I'm like,
like I don't know if I want to eat an elephant, but I get
Right.
the point. It's like an elephant is huge, and you're trying to take in the entire elephant, and it's like, how do you eat an elephant? Well, you do it one bite at a time, and that's how do you do anything? You do it one
And
step
even with the
at a
elephant,
time.
they're the longest animal on earth that takes them 2 years to have a baby.
Yeah.
Where a
Mhm.
human, it's 9 months. I'm sure a lot of women out there are like, "Thank God I'm not an elephant." But, it's like
Yes.
the timing part, we have to realize that there's little small bits that we have to take, but
Mhm.
also it's the timing. Stop
It's
rushing it,
timing.
because you'll
It's
learn,
timing.
like, what you know now and what I learned the first time when I came here, it's two different people. That's why you
Yeah.
have to keep evolving, you can't
Wow.
stay stuck, so
Well, Doreen is back, and she says very encouraging, ladies. Thank you, Doreen. We're
Wow,
so
great.
thank you, because we're so encouraged that you're encouraged. And I knew that this story behind the brand would be amazing. Paula, thank you so
Thank you
much
for having me.
for gracing the audience and sharing with the Speak Out Loud audience about the story behind your brand. And you will come back, right?
Oh god, most definitely, yes, I will.
All
Definitely.
right. Thank you so much. Well, hey, everybody, this has been amazing talking to Miss Paula Armstrong, and she has the Journey podcast. And it's on Spotify. She's going on her sixth podcast. So we'll be talking back to her when we'll talk back to her when she's hit 25. her 25th podcast and say, Paula, let's talk. When you hit your 25th podcast, please come back and share with us. It's been a pleasure talking with her. And I just enjoy talking to all of you every single week. Remember that God loves you. I love you. But most importantly, learn to love yourself. Bye until next week. Bye for now.
You've been watching Speak Out Loud, the story behind the brand with your host, Lynette Jackson. Please like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. And until next week, don't forget to use your voice to speak out loud.